Imagine discovering the person you trust most is living a lie. One day, your entire world crumbles. Betrayal, infidelity, and the realization that love can turn into a stranger's face. That's what happened to me. I didn't yell, didn't fight. I just disappeared, leaving behind a note and my wedding ring. I built a new life far from the chaos, embracing solitude and peace. But the past has a way of finding you. Now, she's back, begging for a second chance. Do I let her in or close the door forever? This is a story about heartbreak, revenge, and choosing yourself, no matter how much it hurts. It started like a whisper in my head, something I wanted to ignore but couldn't. Months of subtle changes, late nights, hushed phone calls, and the faint scent of cologne that wasn't mine. I told myself I was paranoid. Marriage has its ups and downs, right? Still, doubt gnawed at me until it grew into an obsession. That day, I made a decision. I followed her, feeling my pulse pound with each turn. And then it happened. She entered a hotel, laughing, her hand slipping effortlessly into his. My chest tightened, my breath caught. There it was, undeniable proof. I just stood there, paralyzed, watching the life I thought we shared crumble. That moment was the end. I didn't confront her. What was the point? I had all the answers I needed, but no words could match the betrayal I felt. My mind raced, running through every argument we'd had, every excuse she'd given. They all made sense now. I returned home in silence, walking through the doorway like a ghost. My heart felt heavy, and I couldn't bear to see her face again. She wasn't the woman I married, and this wasn't the life I wanted. A decision took root in me then. I wouldn't shout, cry, or beg. I'd disappear quietly, without warning. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the wedding ring on my finger. Everything in me screamed to throw it, smash it, burn it, but I didn't. Instead, I wrote a note, short and to the point. No dramatic explanations, no accusations. Just a sentence, and my wedding band left neatly on the counter, like an artifact of a broken life. When morning came, I was already gone. I didn't look back, didn't leave a trace. Let her find it, let her wonder. I disappeared into nothingness, with no intention of ever coming back. Leaving wasn't as impulsive as it seemed. I'd been planning this escape in the corners of my mind long before the final straw broke. The betrayal was the push I needed to execute what I'd only dreamed of. With no shared bank accounts, no kids, and no lingering attachments, it was almost too easy. I wiped my tracks clean, deactivated social media, sold off things quietly, and withdrew what I needed in small sums. I packed light, essentials, memories I couldn't bear to leave, and a silence so loud it felt deafening. Before dawn, I hit the road, no destination, just freedom ahead. In my rear-view mirror, I watched my old life fade, the house growing smaller until it was nothing. Finally, I felt weightless. The drive was long and empty, a mix of exhaustion and adrenaline keeping me awake. The highway stretched for miles, each passing town a reminder that no one knew where I was or cared to look. I settled on a remote area surrounded by nature, the kind of place no one stumbles upon. I found a small trailer for sale, isolated and rough, just like I wanted. It wasn't luxurious, far from it, but it was mine. Setting it up felt symbolic, like rebuilding myself from scratch. No reminders of her, no echoes of our life together, just quiet solitude. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. I left no trace behind, save for that note and the ring. I imagined her finding it, confusion, panic, maybe even regret. Did she deserve closure? Maybe, but I didn't know her that. I owed myself peace. Alone, surrounded by trees and silence, I began to heal, little by little. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't triumph. It was just survival. As the days passed, I wondered if she'd even look for me, or she was too consumed by her shiny new life. Either way, I was gone, and she couldn't reach me. Or so I thought. Days turned into weeks, and I settled into my new life with surprising ease. The trailer, though modest, became my refuge, a quiet fortress in the middle of nowhere. Mornings were slow, filled with the smell of coffee and the distant hum of wind rustling through the trees. I took comfort in routines, chopping wood, tending a small fire, and clicking away at my remote work to keep the bills paid. The solitude wasn't lonely, it was peaceful. Nature became my closest companion, offering something the city and my old life never could: clarity. With every sunrise, I felt pieces of myself returning, like I was rebuilding from the ashes. I rediscovered small joys I'd long forgotten: the satisfaction of a perfectly cooked meal, the beauty of an uninterrupted sunset, the soothing crackle of a fire at night. Out here, there were no distractions, no voices nagging me with what-ifs or whys. My head, which once spun with endless questions about betrayal and pain, now grew quieter. I was learning how to enjoy my own company again, and it felt like freedom. Bit by bit, I was letting go of the anger that once gripped me, though the scars remained, like faded ink on an old page. Still, some nights hit harder than others. I'd sit outside, wrapped in an old blanket, and think about her. Not because I missed her, but because I couldn't understand how someone I love could betray me so deeply. I'd hear the faint buzz of my phone vibrating, long ignored, and wonder if she had tried to reach me. Curiosity was a dangerous thing, though, and I wasn't ready to break my silence. Healing takes time, I reminded myself. And out here, I had nothing but time. But no matter how isolated I felt, I couldn't shake the sense that the past wasn't finished with me yet. I never planned to find out what happened to her after I left, but word travels, even to the middle of nowhere. A mutual friend, oblivious to my desire for distance, mentioned her downfall in passing. The affair hadn't stayed secret for long. Whispers turned into rumors, and soon the truth unraveled at her workplace. Colleagues began to pull away, their smiles replaced with judgmental glances. Betrayal doesn't stay hidden forever, and it seemed she was learning that the hard way. The man she risked everything for, he was punished too. His job, his reputation, gone. And just like that, they turned on each other. I won't pretend I felt sorry for either of them. Choices have consequences. The irony wasn't lost on me. I imagined her sitting in the same cafe where we once shared lazy Sunday mornings, alone and unwelcome. The man who was supposed to be her future now blamed her for his ruined life, leaving her trapped in the mess they created. I couldn't deny the satisfaction that came with knowing she felt even an ounce of what I'd been through. But at the same time, there was a bitterness in it. This wasn't justice. Nothing could undo what happened or give me back the years I lost. Karma doesn't heal wounds. It just settles scores. Still, I wondered how she felt in those moments when everything fell apart. Did she regret what she'd done? Did she miss the life we had? Or was her pride too big to admit she'd thrown it all away for something fleeting? Those questions lingered, but I never sought answers. I'd built a wall between her life and mine, and I refused to break it. Yet deep down I knew. People like her don't just fade away. Something told me our paths weren't finished crossing. It was supposed to be a normal day, one of those quiet routines I'd come to cherish. I stopped by my usual cafe, the one where they knew my order by heart, and settled into a corner seat, ready to lose myself in the familiar comfort of a hot cup of coffee. Then I saw her. At first, I thought my mind was playing tricks on me, but no, it was her, sitting alone, her shoulders slumped, eyes lost in the steam of her own drink. My heart hammered in my chest. Every instinct screamed, "Get out now." I ducked my head, praying she hadn't seen me, but it was too late. The past had just walked into my present. For a moment, I couldn't move. I sat frozen, watching her from the corner of my eye. She looked different, not in a way that made me feel pity, but enough to stir something. Confusion, anger, maybe both. I hadn't seen her since I left, and there she was, in my safe space, shattering my illusion of invisibility. I gripped my coffee, trying to breathe, my pulse echoing in my ears. Was it a coincidence? It had to be. This town was a dot on the map. No one comes here by accident, unless she was looking for me. The thought burned in the back of my mind, making my skin crawl. I debated leaving, walking out like she wasn't there, but it was too late. My calm, my routine, it was already ruined. I could feel the tension rising in me, that familiar weight pressing on my chest. I didn't want to see her. I didn't want to feel anything. But there she sat, unmoving, almost as if she were waiting. I forced myself to focus on the table, the cup, anything but her. I wasn't ready for this. Not yet. But something told me it wasn't over. This wasn't just a chance meeting. This was the first crack in the wall I'd built around my new life. I thought I could escape, just slip out the door and disappear like before. I stood, keeping my head down, praying I could blend into the hum of the cafe. But then I heard it. My name, loud and clear. It cut through the room like a knife, freezing me mid-step. Her voice, familiar, but now filled with something desperate, stopped me cold. I turned slowly, almost in disbelief, and there she was. Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. The room felt smaller. My throat tightened, and every ounce of me screamed to run, to shove past the door and never look back. But I couldn't move. She had found me. "Please," she said, her voice unsteady as she approached. I hated how natural it felt to hear her speak to me, like nothing had happened. Her presence pulled up everything I'd buried, anger, confusion, and a gut-wrenching sadness I thought I'd conquered. She begged for just a moment of my time. A part of me wanted to laugh, to shout, to ask her what right she had to demand anything from me. But I didn't. Instead, I nodded stiffly and gestured for her to follow me outside. I wasn't about to let her invade this space any further. My hands shook as I pushed open the door, the cold air snapping me back to reality. We stood outside, face to face, for the first time in months. She looked tired, smaller somehow, like the weight of her own choices had finally caught up to her. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. She hesitated, choosing her words carefully, but I didn't care. I didn't trust her. I didn't want to trust her. The silence between us stretched as she searched for the right thing to say. I could feel it, the tension, the pull of unfinished business. I hated it. I hated that seeing her still made me feel anything at all. And deep down, I knew this wouldn't be the last of her. She started with an apology, one of those tear-filled, shaky-voiced apologies that seemed rehearsed. I stood there, arms crossed, listening but not really hearing her words. "I made a mistake," she said, over and over again, like a broken record. Each word chipped at my resolve, but I kept my face hard. How many times had I replayed this moment in my mind? In every version, I shut her down without a second thought. Yet, there she was, trembling in front of me, trying to resurrect a connection she had so carelessly destroyed. I hated her for making me feel something, anything at all. Then she pulled out the memories, weaving them into her apology like weapons. The first time we met, the day we moved into our home, our lazy Sunday mornings when the world outside didn't exist. "We were happy," she said, her voice breaking. I felt my jaw tighten. Memories I'd buried came flooding back, vivid and raw. She wasn't just apologizing. She was playing on everything we used to be, everything I used to want. And I knew exactly what she was doing. It was manipulation, plain and simple. She was pulling the strings, hoping the man she betrayed still existed underneath my hardened exterior. Her final move was her appearance. It wasn't accidental. I knew that much. She looked put together in a way that reminded me of the past, familiar enough to hurt, but different enough to make me wonder. She wiped her tears delicately, letting her eyes linger on me, as if trying to read my mind. "You loved me once," she whispered, her voice just above the wind. I clenched my fists in my pockets, forcing myself to stay still. A part of me wanted to scream that this wasn't love. Love doesn't lie. Love doesn't betray. But I said nothing. Let her talk, I thought. It doesn't change the truth. I wouldn't let her win. Not this time. I let her speak, let her spill every excuse, every tear-soaked plea. But I didn't budge. "We can fix this," she said, like the years we spent together were just some broken vase we could glue back together. I shook my head, forcing myself to hold her gaze. "Fix what?" I finally asked, my voice calm but firm. "You broke us. There's nothing left to fix." It felt good to say it out loud, to remind her that I wasn't the same person who once believed in us. The damage she caused wasn't something an apology could erase. It was irreversible, like a fire that burned everything to ashes. Her face fell at my words, but I didn't stop. "You made your choice," I said, my voice low. "And now you have to live with it, just like I did." The resentment, the pain, it all came pouring out, but I kept my tone steady, controlled. I refused to let her see just how much her betrayal had shattered me. She tried to cut through my resolve, bringing up the good times, the way we used to laugh and dream together. But those memories, once precious, now felt tainted, like looking at a photo of someone I no longer recognized. She wanted me to forget, but I couldn't. I wouldn't. In the end, I could see the defeat in her eyes. She knew I wasn't going to bend. I'd spent months rebuilding myself, brick by brick, and I wasn't about to let her tear it all down again. "I'm not coming back," I said finally. My words landed like a stone, heavy and final. The wind carried away whatever response she was about to give, but it didn't matter. I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, small and silent. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need closure. I just needed my peace, and I was determined to keep it. I thought it was over, that she'd leave me in peace after our last conversation. But of course, it wasn't that simple. Days later, I received a message from a mutual friend. Apparently, she'd found out where I was. Curiosity got the better of me, so I picked up the phone and called. What I heard left me somewhere between frustration and disbelief. She discovered my location through someone we both knew, someone who thought they were helping. I gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white, as the realization hit. No matter how far I ran, my past was still catching up. And the worst part, I wasn't invisible after all. When she admitted it, confessed, as if she were doing me a favor, I couldn't hide my anger. "You tracked me down," I said flatly. She stumbled over her words, claiming she just needed to see me, as if that excused invading the life I'd built. I felt exposed, like she'd shattered the fragile piece I fought so hard to find. Trust was something I no longer gave away easily, and knowing someone I trusted had betrayed me to her, that stung almost as much as the original betrayal. It was as if the universe refused to let me escape her orbit. After the call, I sat there, staring out the window, frustration swirling like a storm. Part of me wanted to confront the so-called friend who gave her my location. Another part of me wanted to disappear all over again, pack up the trailer and vanish without a trace. But I couldn't keep running forever. As much as I hated it, she'd found me. I needed to decide what to do next. Would I let this drag me back into the mess I'd escaped? Or would I stand my ground and protect the life I'd built for myself? One thing was certain. This wasn't over, not yet. Days after that call, she sent me an email. A long one. The kind you know was typed with shaking hands, words spilling out faster than she could control. She talked about regret, about how the affair had cost her everything. Her friends, her respect, even the man she thought she wanted. "You were the best thing in my life," she wrote, as if those words could undo the damage. She made promises. Change, therapy, a new beginning if I'd only give her another chance. I read it twice, not because I was tempted, but because I couldn't believe how little she understood. You don't shatter something and expect it to return to its original form. I sat there, staring at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. What could I even say? I thought about everything she'd put me through, how I'd piece myself back together, one broken bit at a time. I'd found peace in my solitude, strength in starting over. Reopening that door would mean risking everything I'd fought for. No email, no apology, No promise of change could erase what happened. I didn't hate her anymore, and maybe that was the hardest part. I didn't feel much of anything, just a quiet understanding that we could never go back to what we were. Some damage is permanent. So I hit reply, typing out my response carefully, deliberately. "I'm not coming back," I wrote. "I hope you find the answers you're looking for, but I'm not part of them." That was it. Short, final, and honest. I blocked her email after that, knowing I'd said all I needed to say. For the first time, in what felt like forever, I exhaled. I looked out at the trees swaying in the wind, the life I'd built from scratch, and I smiled. She may have destroyed the old me, but I'd created someone better. I chose peace over chaos, freedom over regret. This time, I was truly free.
Keep watching our stories by clicking on one of the videos that appear on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be alerted about new videos. See you next time.